everyone. Welcome back to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
And my name's Mike.
Hello, Mike.
Hey, Allie, baby girl. How's my sweet little dumpling?
Good. We're officially back from our cruise, back to reality.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was cheering, but we're back. It's good to see you guys and talk to you guys and all that stuff. But it's kind of nice being on vacation, I got to say. It's nice.
Reality is kind of harsh. I don't like coming back to it. I don't want to face it. I don't want to look at my emails. I just want to burrow myself into a hole and pretend that nothing is happening around me.
As the movie says, reality bites, right?
Bites.
You old folks like us, you'll remember that movie back in the day.
I freaking love that movie.
It was like I came back and I want to review the ship because we went on a cruise and we went on Utopia of the Seas in Royal Caribbean. And it was just it was a lot of fun. It was a great time. I wanted to review it for everybody else because like all these things that everybody does, like there's all these insider tips. Like I mean, Disney's number one. Like if you go to Disney parks, like you have to be a Disney freak insider to like get the maximization of it. You can't just show up and be like, all right, well, I'm going to have fun today, because then you won't have the most fun that you can. Whereas,
I mean, that's what I do. I'm not researching going to a friggin' amusement park for 6 months. That's just not how I roll.
Right.
And I think it's utterly ridiculous that you have to be drinking some sort of Kool-Aid to get on a ride.
Yeah, you feel like more a part of the club if you're doing that. But like anything, like Royal Caribbean, there are some things like that we had to know beforehand, like scheduling our dinner times and everything, which I never really did. So we went to the buffet every single day for dinner.
We went to the buffet.
The buffet.
We are carnival goers, just because if you compare the cruises side by side, the price difference can sometimes be pretty stark.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't swallow that pill. But this time around, we're like, all right, let's just try Royal Caribbean. First time. And it was great. It was just really loud on the ship. Like you could not go to a quiet spot on that ship. It didn't exist.
Yeah, especially because Allison would let us know every time we're somewhere. She's like, oh my gosh, there's music. This music, it's booming. This is boom, boom, boom.
Now, do not get me wrong. I love music. If we're just hanging out in our house, I play music. So I'm not somebody that dislikes music. I'm talking pumping club music for 12 hours. It in like really loud. Like even our 13 and 16-year-olds were like, wow, that's really loud.
Yeah, it was. Now, I'm more of a laid back person, as you guys may know.
And I'm not at all. And I complain a lot.
She does. So the more she complained about it, the more I thought about it, and the more it got me anxious and everything. So now if she wasn't complaining about it, I'd probably just block it out entirely and be fine with it. But
I basically make Mike's life a living hell.
No.
But I'm somebody, Mike always says, why do you, just because you think it doesn't mean you have to say it. And I'm like, but I do. I have to say it.
She comes from a family that shares absolutely everything that's in their mind. And I come from a family that keeps it all buried down inside. And we've talked about this before, but yeah, there's somewhere in the middle is the right thing to do. And but I thought it was a really cool ship. There's a lot of cool things to do, but it was I mean, man, wouldn't it be awesome to just always kind of be on vacation? Like with this current economy, like with the internet and everything, like you can kind of make money from traveling, but you got to get that like following first. So luckily we have all you guys to listen to. So maybe we're going to start a travel blog at some point.
I mean, we do review things. I'm not going to like pat myself too hard on the back, but we do take a lot of things into consideration. Thanks, Mike, for patting me on the back.
You on the back for you. There you go.
When we do review things, so Mike put together such a good review for the Utopia of the Seas, and I think it would be super helpful. So we're like, maybe someday we'll spin off and continue to do our podcast and also do a cruise, channel.
The Cruise and Coffee Couple. How awesome would that be? The Cruise and Coffee Couple, and then we can like record from the cruise ship. I mean, that'd be fun. I mean, we'd probably have E. coli every once in a while or whatever.
Oh, no doubt. Norovirus.
That's the one. Mm-hmm. That's the big time. So that would help me lose weight. So I would welcome that for sure.
But it is good to be back to and get back into the swing of things. But it was a quick cruise. It was like 4 days. So
one funny story happened to our son.
Oh my gosh. So my suitcase got hijacked because I wasn't sure if they would allow me to have these cords or plugs, for the extenders. And Mike's like, I don't think they allow it. I'm like, well, whatever. If they take it, they take it. They're $9.
Like Royal Caribbean specifically, you got a little harsher on what they'd allow on the ship. And that was most recently. So I was pretty sure they weren't going to let it.
So I got 2 for $9. I was like, if they take the 2 plugs, let them take them. So we get to the room and 3 of our bags are there, but my suitcase with like everything in it is not there. And I'm like, oh, great. They're like, all bags will be delivered by 6 p.m. I'm like, all right. We come back at 7:30, still no suitcase. So with that, we do magnets on our cruise door just so it's very easy to identify that this is our room. But the magnets were in the bag, so I couldn't put them up. So our son, of course, it's always our son. He's He's such an interesting character.
16 years old, but like mentally, sometimes he's like 5 or 6.
So he's texting us on the app, or no, I should say he didn't get the app as we instructed. So somehow he's texting us. He can't get into the room. His key doesn't work, of course.
On the way there, we're like, kids, you all have the app. They're like,
yeah.
Yep.
And then he's like, oh, I accidentally downloaded Carnival. I'm like, well, we're not on a Carnival ship. So he can't get into the room, and turns out I'm sure he was going to the wrong room. So we get back to the room. He's in there, and he tells us he accidentally walked into the wrong room and saw a naked woman.
We were like, how old was this lady? He's like older, like 60s probably.
I think he said somewhere in like 50s, 60s. And I'm like, did she see you? And he's like, yeah, she gasped.
She's like, oh.
Yeah. And he said he just ran.
I picture her clutching her pearls. My word. She had pearls on, but she didn't.
Of course you walked into a cabin with a naked woman standing there. Of course you did. If anything like that is going to happen, it will happen to our son.
And some of the good thinking he did, he said, I didn't say anything. I was going to say sorry, but I wanted to make sure she didn't know my voice. So I didn't want to say anything. And I just ran out the door right away.
Like, that's a lot of thought processing in a matter of a second.
That's pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with that. Like for, a lot of the thoughts that don't go on during the day. And then he was just making it like our problem. Like, where's I don't know. I don't have my wallet. I'm like, okay, well,
that's another thing. He misplaced his wallet twice because he refused to wear the cruise lanyard around his neck because apparently that's not cool.
Oh my gosh. He's so worried about what's cool. Like this, I remember being in high school and always trying to like look buff and like you look a little bigger than I am. And all the high school kids that were on the ship, they were doing the same thing, just trying to walk around and show off and peacock a little bit for the girls and the girls for the guys and all this stuff. It's man, that's a tough time.
So when we first got to the room, I'm like, there's a reason people wear these lanyards because it's just your C-Pass. You don't have your ID or anything else of importance. And then Mike and I finally break away to be by ourselves and our phone is being exploded with, I can't find my wallet. I'm like, oh my gosh.
So he tries to make it our problem. We're like, sorry, man, good luck.
Yeah, we're like, you're taking care of this problem.
He's like, who do I go to? I'm like, I would wonder the same thing, and then I would ask somebody. So good luck, go do the same. Like I try to teach him so that he's prepared for like life at some point.
Right, because he's like, well, help me. I'm like, we are helping you. We're helping you by releasing you into the world.
Yeah, it's fun.
So anyway, are you ready to jump back into this?
I am. Let's dive back in since we're off the ship and ready to go.
All right, so this is the death of Madison Scott. And this is a listener suggestion from Angela and Mira. So thank you guys so much. So today we're heading back to 2011 into the vast wilderness of British Columbia, Canada. And when I say vast, I truly mean vast. And this is when 20-year-old Madison Scott headed out for a birthday party at a lakeside campground not far from her home. And the last time any of the partygoers recalled seeing Madison was when she was settled in her tent and she was ready for bed. But only hours later, she was just missing without a trace and really gave people the feeling that she just disappeared like in an instant. That's the feeling this whole situation gave her friends and family.
Like I looked at her a couple minutes ago and I looked at her again, she's gone.
Yeah, and again, hours did pass, but you'll come to find the details. So despite extensive search measures, her family had to wait 12 agonizing years before they had any information as to where Madison was. And to this day, they still have so many unanswered questions in regards to what happened to her. So Madison, who went by Maddy, so Maddy Scott was born on April 29th, 1991 to parents Eldon and Dawn Scott, and she has 2 siblings, a brother Ben and a sister Georgia. So the Scott family of 5 lived in Vanderhoof, which is situated in the center of British Columbia, Canada. And again, this is a vast province. It's the westernmost province of Canada. It's bordered to the west by the Pacific Ocean and Alaska, to the north by Yukon and the Northwest Territories, to the east by the province of Alberta, and then to the south by Washington, Idaho, and Montana. And it's huge. It's 1.7 times the size of France, just for a little perspective.
Yeah, but at the same time, Canada, most of the Canadian people live in the southernmost point of all their provinces because it's so freaking cold. And there's so much wilderness out there.
Right. So on Friday, May 27th, 2011, Maddy headed out for a birthday party at a place called Hogsback Lake. And this is in British Columbia, about 15 miles or 24 kilometers from where she lived in Vanderhoof. So since she knew that drinking was going to be involved at the party, and, she's 20 years old, she just wants to have fun and be with her friends, she and her friend Jordan, or Jordy is what she went by, Bulldog, they planned to just set up a tent at the campground and just stay the night. That way they didn't have to worry about how much they were drinking and then getting in their car and driving, which is responsible. So Maddy and Jordy, they hadn't interacted a lot during high school, but it was after graduation that they started connecting and hanging out. So their friendship to that point wasn't super deep. They had just started reconnecting. So Hogsback Lake has a 5-mile trail system and 3 campsites, which run along 6 lakes, and it's a hot spot for local parties, younger people, because you could have booming music and a lot of noise, and it's far enough removed from where people live that you're not going to get noise complaints. So with tears in her eyes, Dawn, this is Maddy's mom, she recalls the last time she ever saw her daughter. And of course, as this is happening, you never in your wildest dreams think that this is going to be the last time you see the person that you love. So Maddy had ran back into the house at about 9:30 p.m. on that Friday after she'd forgotten some of her necessary camping supplies. And Dawn probably said what she always said to Maddy. You know, she loves her, be safe, have fun. And she watched her bound out of the house, and she just assumed she'd probably see her the next day. So Maddy drove her white Ford F-150 to the lake for the birthday party, and this party was going to involve right around 50 young people from around the area. They were going to range in age from anywhere from 18 to 25 years old.
Man, what a great time. That's like a great time to be alive. Like any 18 to 25-year-olds out there, that's a really, really fun time in your life. You don't have a whole lot of responsibility. You can take some risks, like calculated risks, financially or whatever, and like you could still jump back from things. Yeah, I'm sure she was looking forward to a great time.
Right, because Maddy is 20 at this point in time, and she's working. She's a hard worker, but she still lived with her parents. So you still have that taste of adulthood, but the security of your parents still around you. I miss that feeling, knowing someone's got your back.
Yeah, it's nice.
So according to Jordy, once they arrived, they set up their 2-tone blue tent near Maddy's truck right at the campground. And then the girls headed off to gather firewood. And as they got back to the site, more and more people began to slowly filter in for the party. And again, there was going to be about 50 people there. So as the night wore on, additional guests started showing up, which according to Jordy were on the rougher side, and they weren't part of the group. No one knew that they were going to be there. So Maddy was texting with her dad right around 11 p.m. and up until maybe midnight-ish. And at this point in time, apparently a fight broke out amongst some of the partygoers, and then this caused the party to break up earlier than anyone expected it to. So while Maddy wasn't a big drinker, Jordy admits that she got extremely intoxicated that night. And apparently she stumbled, she fell towards the campfire, and she hurt her knee. And at that point in time, she decided that she just wanted to go home. So when she told Maddy that she was going to leave with her boyfriend instead of camping as they had planned all along, Maddy was already settled into her tent at this point in time.
Yeah, this is the plan. Like we planned to stay here the night, and now all of a sudden you're changing up. And not to mention you're intoxicated, or Maddy was intoxicated, right?
No, Maddy was not.
Oh, okay.
She wasn't a big drinker.
Well, so the other one, clearly the other one that is, she's not making sense because you're not thinking straight when you're drinking.
Right, and they already set up their tent. They already had their things set. Like, just get in your tent and go to sleep, So by this point in time, only maybe 5 people remained at the campsite, none of which were planning on staying the night. They were all going home. So Maddy tried her best to persuade her friend Jordy to stay as they had planned all along.
Wow. So it goes from like a huge raging party to like 5 people, then none of them are staying. And Maddy's like looking to stay there by herself at this point because her friend's leaving.
Right.
Wow.
So Jordy and her boyfriend offered to drive Maddy home, but she had her tent set up. She had her things in place. She said no, so they left. So other partygoers indicated that they'd also offered Maddy a ride home that night, but she declined, and she chose to stay with her tent as well as her belongings as she had planned all along. And I'm just one of those people, if I make plans, if I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to freaking be there.
Yeah, I was thinking of you in this situation. If you've planned something, that's how it's going to go. And if it doesn't go that way, you're going to spin a little bit in the head.
And people who don't stick to plans and just fly through the wind make me insane.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you say something, mean it.
Yeah, if you're a free spirit, Allison is not a huge fan of your thought process.
And don't get me wrong, my cousin, who's right around my age, she's a free spirit, opposite of me, complete opposite. And I love her to death and we get along swimmingly.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
So according to the last people who were filtering out from the party that night, Maddy did not at all seem drunk. She didn't seem concerned that she would be out on her own for the rest of the night. So the last time anyone recalled seeing Maddy, it was just before 3 a.m., somewhere around 3:30-ish is the time I kept seeing. So now we're on Saturday morning, and she was left alone to sleep at the campsite. So when investigators later spoke with Dawn, Maddy's mom, she did not believe that her daughter realized that she was going to be left alone in the darkness of the wilderness of British Columbia.
Okay, so she thinks they had a story put together instead of that.
Or that there was a misunderstanding, that Maddy did not realize that no one was staying there. And then the last car pulls away and she's like, shoot, I'm here completely by myself.
Yeah.
So she doesn't believe that Maddy would have stayed had she known she was going to be completely alone. So hours later, at about 8:30 in the morning now, this Saturday morning, Jordy was on her way to work and she stopped back at the campsite to grab some of the things that she had left behind in Maddy's tent. So she pulls up to the campsite and she sees that Maddy's truck was still where she originally parked it that night. So the tent door flap was unzipped and open of Maddy's tent, but she didn't see Maddy. She said her sleeping bag, her blanket, and her belongings were pushed to the inside of the tent. She also saw Maddy's rings outside the tent. And this is despite the fact that Maddy was not someone that took her rings off. Like, you know, the people who are putting on lotion or making a recipe or something and they take their rings off. Maddy didn't do that. So she rarely ever took them off. Jordy also saw that her earrings were on the ground by the tent as well. So regardless of all of this, Jordy grabbed her things and she went to work. She never got in touch with Eldon or Dawn about the fact that Maddy wasn't there, yet her belongings were left behind. Just like, hey, I pulled up to the campsite. Maddy's tent was open. Her truck was there. I didn't see her. Just want to give you guys a heads up. Have you talked to her? Nothing like that.
That's weird.
So other guests from the party also returned to the campsite on that Saturday morning in order to gather some of the things they had left behind. But when they saw Maddy's truck and her tent, they never really looked any further. They just made the assumption that maybe she was still inside her tent and asleep. So now on Saturday night, this is one night after the birthday party that Maddy attended, there was an even larger party held at Hogsback Lake. Like I said, this is a hot spot for parties. It's not uncommon that you would see back-to-back parties. So this party in particular had many more people. There were 150 people in attendance. And none of these partygoers recall seeing Maddy in the area while they were there gathered. So this reinforced the idea that whatever may have happened to Maddy happened in the earlier hours of Saturday morning. So if there was any evidence that related to Maddy's disappearance at the campsite where she had her tent erected, it was completely erased because we're talking about 150 people trampling over the area, erasing any potential evidence. So meanwhile, when Maddy didn't come home on Saturday, Dawn and Eldon, they weren't worried. They just figured they were having a party. Everyone just said, hey, let's camp even longer. We're having a great time. So she never had concrete plans leading into that weekend. She never told her parents, I will be home on Saturday afternoon, nothing like that. Cell service in the area was also very spotty, so they just figured they hadn't heard from her, that she was unable to get a hold of them to let them know. So each time they did try to call her phone, it went straight to voicemail. But again, this wasn't uncommon in this area. So when they still hadn't heard from her, now the following day, this is Sunday, May 29th, Dawn started to get worried. So she called Jordy's mother, who indicated that Jordy had been home, like since Friday night / early morning hours of Saturday. She had been attending work. She was actually at work at that point. And that was really the moment that Dawn's fear started to roll in, that she was thinking something's not right here. So she called her husband at work and they drove over to Hogsback Lake to see if Maddy was there. So as they pulled up to the campsite, Eldon and Dawn found their daughter's tent partially collapsed, but all of her belongings, once they pulled it open, were still inside. But Maddy was nowhere to be found. They knew their daughter to be an impulsive person who often did spur-of-the-moment things, but she did always touch base with them. So if something was going to be out of the ordinary, if she was going to go off somewhere, she would have let her parents know. So since they brought her spare car keys, Eldon and Dawn were able to get into Maddy's truck, and here they found her purse and backpack. But her car keys with her Gothic-style lanyard, as well as her iPhone 4 with its light blue case, were not there. They were missing. And they were immediately concerned since Maddy never went anywhere without her purse. And she was unlikely to have left all of her things behind and then gone off and done something completely different. So they also walked around the area of the campsite. They spoke to other campers who were there. They had not seen Maddy. They didn't recall seeing her, but they did note, no, her truck has not moved. It's been parked there the entire time. So after walking around to nearby trails and finding no sign whatsoever of Maddy, Dawn contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, in order to report her daughter missing, and the fear and desperation in her voice could be clearly heard.
RCMP?
Hi, I'm calling. My daughter's 20. We're at Hogsback, and I haven't heard from her since Friday night. And we just came out, and our pickup is here in the vehicle, and people haven't seen her at all.
Okay, what's her name?
Madison Scott.
And what's her date of birth?
April 29th, 91.
So she was last heard from on Friday?
Friday night, yes.
Okay.
All of her stuff's here, but yeah, I don't know.
Where does she live? With you?
Yes, with us in Vanderhoof.
So an official search and rescue began that afternoon as Dawn could only wonder, where is Maddy? Where could she possibly be? And they're sitting there at the campsite, walking around, looking around, and all she could think in her mind is, please, Maddy, please, let me just see you walking down a trail and just say, oh, you know what? This is where I was. And give a reasonable explanation as to where she had been. But that didn't happen. And they learned that a party goer from the larger party that was held on that Saturday night had collapsed her tent. They found the reason why that was happened. There was nothing sinister about the fact that her tent was collapsed with her things inside. Apparently, because you have to realize that there's a lot of drinking happening at this party.
Oh, 150 people there. Somebody probably bumped into it or something.
Right. And that's what happened. He possibly fell into it. They tracked this man down. They talked to him. He was not involved at all. So investigators were troubled, though, when they learned that Maddy's friends who had been at the party with her, and again, we're talking about a very remote, quiet, dark, isolated place. This 20-year-old girl, they're talking to these people and they're like, you did what? You left her there by herself to spend the night? So I will tell you, investigators were really taken aback by that fact. And Maddy's mom, Dawn, she was incredibly disappointed by that fact, especially since Jordy had promised that she was going to stay the night with her. And
is Maddy the type of person that would do this sort of thing, like camp out by herself? Was she known to camp out by herself
she
in the past?
Loved the outdoors.
Right. So has she done it before?
No, I don't think she ever camped out by herself. And that's why her mom said, I don't think Maddy had any idea that she was going to be completely alone.
Right. Because just safety in numbers. And
right.
Just at least somebody, especially as a woman, you want to make sure you have some people. And even, that's definitely weird.
Oh, it'd be scary. It's not even just, people that you can come upon, but like the wildlife and animals and things. I mean,
anything.
It's very scary.
You can trip and hurt yourself, and then you have nobody to help you. So it almost sounds like the police are becoming a little suspicious.
Right. And of course, they have to talk to everybody that was at that party. What the hell happened? What were Maddy's last movements, etc. So Jordy indicated that since Maddy disappeared, she has received a lot of online hate where she's been accused of being a horrible person. And I will tell you, in the videos that I watched, everyone was like, in a million years, I would not leave my friend behind in the darkness of a campground. So, the fact that she left her friend in the Canadian wilderness in the dark by herself, after she promised to stay the night with her in the tent, she has received a lot of backlash. So since the terrain around Hogsback Lake and in British Columbia in general is extremely rugged and vast and involves dense wooded areas as well as water, finding Maddy has been likened to trying to find a needle in a haystack. Searchers, which included rescue teams, volunteers, divers, and tracking dogs, they combed the area around the campground in hopes of finding Maddy. Sonar equipment was also used to scan the lake, but there was zero trace of her. Like I said, it just seemed like she just vanished into thin air. So it was the RCMP's belief that something may have happened to Maddy sometime between 4 and 8:30 a.m. because, again, the last partygoers left somewhere around 3:30, and then Jordy came back to the campsite at 8:30 in the morning to get her belongings. So sometime between 4 and 8:30 a.m. is when that happened, and it was Saturday morning, May 28th, hours after she was last seen. Based on evidence at the scene, they did not believe that Maddy had just simply walked away on her own accord because, again, she left her belongings behind. She would not have done that. So it wasn't until Monday, May 30th, when terror truly set in for Maddy's friends. Because her friends, they're young and they think maybe she just took an impromptu trip with someone.
You're young, you think you can live forever, and it's just like, yeah, she'll turn up, I'm sure.
Right. And I didn't look to see if that was Memorial Day, and does Canada celebrate? No, they don't. So
I don't
just
think so.
excuse my ignorance.
Yeah.
Being an American, I just know that Monday, May 30th is right around Memorial Day and that it's a holiday. But again, we're in Canada. So
different countries, different things.
Excuse my ignorance. Okay. I'm a very ignorant buffoon.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
So they were holding out hope that, she was going to come back. But by that Monday, that hope had really started to fade and they were really scared. So this was the point that everyone was carrying a sick feeling in the pit of their stomachs, unable to comprehend what could have possibly happened to Maddy. So the majority of Maddy's belongings were intact. And other than the fact that her keys, her phone, and the clothing that she was last seen wearing were missing, obviously, as well as herself, it just seemed like she just got carried away with somebody or walked away or something.
Now, the first thing I'm thinking is she had to go to the bathroom or something. Is this like a mountainous terrain where maybe she could have fallen down a ravine or something? No, this is all like a lake flat. Okay.
So I watched the documentary where you see where her tent was. You see how her truck was parked. She did not fall over a mountain. It was flats. So her family launched extensive campaigns in order to raise awareness about Maddy's disappearance. They offered a $100,000 reward for any information that could lead to finding their daughter.
Are we talking like what kind of bears are in this area?
I would imagine. I don't know about bears, but it's very wildlife. I would assume there's a lot of wildlife.
Well, the most dangerous thing would be a bear to me.
Yeah, but there wasn't any blood at the campsite. Nothing that suggested that an animal came upon Maddy and attacked her.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nothing to suggest anything like that. So they have organized a lot of fundraising events in order to keep Maddy's information out there and alive. This includes the annual poker ride for Maddy. So while the police investigation continued, Dawn and Eldon began their own investigation, and they compiled a list of all the people that had been at the party that night, including the facts of when they arrived and when they left, who they arrived with and who they left with. They wanted a picture of what that night looked like, the night that their daughter was last seen. And they set up a makeshift investigation on the home's basement wall, only feet away from where Maddy's now empty bedroom was situated. So they began retracing their daughter's last known movements from that Friday. Before Maddy made her way to the campsite, she stopped off at a liquor store. She later picked up some snacks to bring along. They could see her on surveillance video only hours before she was never seen again. So on their investigation board, the Scotts compiled a list of questions that they wanted answered, such as why was she left on her own? Why did everyone leave despite their initial plans to stay? What happened that made this camping night suddenly fizzle to nothing? So since Maddy intended to camp that night with Jordy Bolduc, Eldon and Dawn knew that she was a person that could potentially answer these questions for them.
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea. It's just like there's something turned, there's something not being said.
So Jordy indicated that the party had grown well beyond what was expected that night, since it was initially supposed to be a group of people who were all familiar with one another, ran in the same crowd. So, but because word of the party spread online where it was posted to Facebook and things like that, more and more people heard about it and began showing up. People that other partygoers didn't even know, they weren't even familiar with. So since Jordy was one of the last people to have seen Maddy that night, investigators focused a lot of attention on her. She basically indicated that for months she was spoken with by investigators on a near daily basis. She did pass 2 polygraph tests, and she was eventually eliminated as a suspect. So meanwhile, days turned into months, and months turned into years, and there was still not a single sign of Maddy. Her disappearance gave people the feeling, like I said, that she just simply vanished into thin air, since the majority of her things were like frozen in time. Her truck was exactly where she parked it. Her tent was exactly where it was erected. Most of her belongings were still there.
Yeah, I get how that's like an interesting way of looking at things, but clearly, obviously, something happened.
Of course,
it's like,
we're not in an alien situation
Right.
where somebody's just zapped from the world. Something happened. So there was no sign, though, like you had mentioned with the animal situation. There was no sign of any physical altercation, whether it be with a human or an animal at the campsite. There was no blood. There was nothing out of the ordinary. The fact that her tent flap had been found unzipped and open, though, it did give the appearance that she may have just stepped out of her tent for a moment. Maybe she got out at, say, 5 o'clock in the morning to pee. And something happened because it looked like she planned to go right back inside that tent.
That's the first thing I thought of. Like, if you were camping there, you'd be getting out all the time, and especially drinking and stuff. You got to go to the bathroom more. So it's like, it was in that. It's crazy. They have like a window of a few hours.
Right.
Like, it's not like 2 days where something happened. It's like between 2:30 a.m. and 8:30 or
between
3.
4 a.m. and 8:30 a.m.
That's
so we're
crazy.
We're
It's such a
talking
small
about
window.
less than 5 hours.
Yeah.
So that is not a large window of time, since that something may have happened. Since her truck was still there and exactly where she had parked it, investigators wonder, did somebody else drive up to the site while she was there by herself and took her in their vehicle? Because again, it's not like they can look at tire tracks and say, oh, this is the car that pulled up and took her. We're talking about at least 50 plus people were there on Friday night, and then another 150 were there the following night. So you can't look at tire tracks and rule who did something potentially.
No, that throws everything out the window. And I did look up animals in the area. They said like venomous snakes and like there's black bears, but like they're kind of timid and they don't really do anything. It's like there's got to be an answer to something. It's like and like besides bears, nothing's gonna pick up a human and take it. Like bobcats or whatever, they're too small.
No.
It's like it's just so man. Like, and then you mentioned, I'm sure you're going to tell us more about this like group that came in that nobody really knew about. I'm sure they talked to all those people.
They did talk to all of those people, but nothing. So I will tell you, though, that a lot of things are kept close to the chest in this case.
Well, like, for instance, what made them all say, yes, we're camping tonight, and then all of a sudden, nope, we're not camping anymore. Clearly, the police are holding that for some reason.
Right.
An investigation's going. I don't blame them.
It's active.
Let them so that the people that actually know can know only, instead of like the general public comes out with like these theories, and all of a sudden somebody says, I did it, and that's not, we have those stories all the time.
The big thing that's out there and available is that there was a fight that happened because these unexpected people that people didn't know showed up, and there's drinking involved, and there was an altercation, and that's what made everything disperse, is what was said. So more than a decade passed while the RCMP and community volunteers continued their search for Maddy to no avail whatsoever. And imagine the feeling that her parents, Dawn and Eldon, have during this time, that your baby girl, I don't care if she's 20, I don't care if she's 50, your child is always, I always tell our kids, you will always be our babies, no matter what. And we will never stop worrying about you. Like if our son goes off to drive, I'm like, please be careful. He's like, oh, good thing you told me that, Mom. Otherwise I would go ahead and crash.
I'm going to get into a horrible accident.
I'm like, I don't care. I will forever say that to you. So I can't imagine the desperation and sickness this family had to have carried around with more than 10 years going by, and you don't know what happened to your child.
Because you feel like there's more answers there, but nobody's bringing them to you. It's like something just being held in front of you that you can't really see, but you know it's there.
Somebody did something to Maddy. Right. You know, it's just what happened. So in the meantime, posters remained hung up on windows and things like that, and billboards were mounted to keep her case alive. And these billboards ran along Highway 16 in British Columbia. This runs, they say, from Prince to Prince, because it's Prince George to Prince Rupert. And I will get into a little information about Highway 16. So this case kind of takes a little bit of a veer because there was a lot of speculation about Highway 16, and I'll tell you why. So Highway 16 has become increasingly notorious, and it has become known to locals as the Highway of Tears due to a series of disappearances and murders of women and girls that date back 4 decades. According to the RCMP, since 1969, there have been at least 18 victims, with a large number of the cases that are still unsolved to this day, bodies that have not been found, killers that have not been found. While locals, meanwhile, believe that the number is as high as 43 or more. And I'll tell you why that is. So, and I'll go on to say Hogsback Lake, where Maddy was last seen alive, is 72 miles or 116 kilometers, which is about an hour and 20-minute drive to Highway 16. So it's not like it was right there, but there was a lot of speculation about this highway.
It's almost like people are trying to bunch it in a little bit.
Right. And Maddy does fit the same pattern as some of the cases that have occurred along Highway 16.
You should cover Highway 16.
Right. And I'm going to. At least one of the serial killers that I'll go into.
Hey, if you're a Canadian listener or somebody that knows about them, then leave a comment. Say, let us know which ones to cover.
Right. Exactly. So, and there's a lot of stories. So Sergeant Kent Floyd and Constable Tom Wamsteker of the RCMP, they led the investigation, and they began developing a profile of Maddy. She had always been incredibly close with her family, her siblings, her parents. After she graduated from high school, she began working with her dad in his business within the logging industry. She was very involved, very, very well loved amongst the community, super fun, outgoing, just the person you'd want to go out and be with because you know you're going to have a good time.
And the person to invite to the party because it's going to be better with them.
Right. She had a love of the outdoors, sports, dirt biking. Her best friends, this is Amanda and Jasmine, they describe Maddy as a real competitor, a thoughtful person who always shared, someone who loved to take charge of situations. The 3 girls used to make these cute videos together, and Maddy co-wrote and starred in a suspense movie they called The Stalker, which is kind of creepy now to think about, The Stalker. And you think about this girl sleeping in her dark tent at night and she just vanishes.
Yep.
So Maddy was incredibly social, funny. She was independent. And according to her brother, Ben, she could go from wearing a frilly dress to overalls while she's sitting there changing the oil in her truck. So very multidimensional. You couldn't put her in a box. Mm-hmm. She was someone who was stubborn, so much fun, up for anything, and incredibly spontaneous. You could pitch an idea to her and she'd be like, let's go. I love that. That's a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, agreed.
So neither Amanda nor Jasmine had been at the birthday party that night. This is, of course, her best friends. So I can't imagine feeling like somebody that you love, you're like, I would have never left you there by yourself. So I wasn't there.
Just for how good of a friend was Jordy to her? Like, were they close?
That's the big thing. So everyone's like, some of the research is like, her best friend Jordy. And then people were like, no, that was not her best friend.
Well, it's such lazy investigation. It's just like, yeah, they were together. So best friend.
Best friend. Everyone was like, no, they did not associate with one another through high school. They didn't connect until after high school. And Maddy's 20. So you would assume she's been out of high school for what, maybe 2 years?
It doesn't mean they're not close.
No, I'm not saying that they weren't close. They were planning on sleeping in the same tent that night. It's not like the connection she has with her best friends, Jasmine or Amanda, is what I'm basically saying. And, you have to keep in mind that Jordy said, I was wasted. I fell into the fire. I hurt my knee. When someone's like trashed, they're not necessarily thinking clearly.
Well, no. And clearly, like when she fell, she's like, I just want to get out of here. And maybe she was embarrassed or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, I just want to get out, go home.
So, of course, investigators went on to speak with each of the 50 people that attended the party, and they did not meet a single person who had anything bad to say about Maddy. Anything that would indicate that someone had a vendetta against her and would ever want to hurt her. Because again, she was a fun, outgoing social person that everyone loved. So Sergeant Floyd began hearing murmurs about this person. This is a 28-year-old named Fribjon or Frib Bjorson.
Fribjon?
Yes, isn't that an amazing name?
Wow, interesting.
Fribjon. And then his last name is Bjornson. So he's a logger and a single father of two. He's a resident of Vanderhoof. And apparently he was chattering to his friends about knowing what happened to Maddy. You know how people talk?
Just like we just said, if you come out with too many details and all of a sudden people are going to say, I did it, and whatever, It's like, okay.
So Frib was an acquaintance of Maddy's, and the two did socialize together, but according to Jordy, he was bad news. Police did confirm he had a very troubled life. There was a lot of drug involvement there, but according to his mom, she insisted that he was starting to turn his life around. So when investigators turned their attention to Frib, they learned that he owed drug dealers in town money, and there was speculation and theory. Just like anytime something mysterious happens, there's always so much theory and word. And there was theory that these people potentially abducted Maddy in order to teach him a lesson.
Yeah, stories spread, and then people like to come up with different ideas.
Right. So because they wanted to leave no stone unturned, the RCMP, they're hearing this information. They're going to look into it, which I respect.
Sure.
So Frib voluntarily took a polygraph test. He passed, and he ended up being cleared from the case. So apparently, if it's true that he was yammering on about something to do with Maddy, it was all just words. However, interestingly enough, only 2 days later, Frib himself vanished after he was last seen at a 7-Eleven in Vanderhoof.
That's crazy.
So crazy. So investigators were shocked when 2 weeks later, they found his severed head.
Holy shnikes.
Yes, about 40 miles north of Vanderhoof in an abandoned house.
This is just after the police were done talking to him.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's
How
crazy.
crazy. So Frib's mom believes that her son was murdered for a paycheck that he cashed. So he had just cashed a $2,500 paycheck. So people knew that he had money on him, and he went missing in January of 2012. So on January 12th, he went to the home of Robert Antoine and purchased drugs. So I know his mom said that he was turning his life around, but there was still drug involvement happening.
Well, as parents, we always want to think the best, but sometimes it's not true.
So he was killed in the early morning hours in the home's basement. Shortly before his death, he suffered a broken nose, 2 black eyes, cuts, and contusions. So obviously this man was beaten, and then his head was severed. It's sick.
Did they solve it? Who did?
Yes.
Okay, that's
so
good.
He was ultimately strangled to death by 30-year-old Wesley Duncan. So his severed head was found wrapped in a comforter in the basement of 5 Lower Road. A piece of plastic cable insulation was found wrapped in the comforter with Frib's DNA on it, likely used to strangle him. In October of 2015, his femur and patella bones were found after 34-year-old Jesse Bird confessed to committing the murder and guiding undercover officers to this location where Frib's body was buried. And again, I will say this over and over, that British Columbia is so vast that if someone's remains are hidden somewhere, you might never found them. And the only reason they found them was because this person confessed.
Yeah, I mean, you could drive 3 hours in any direction and just kind of dump them off in the woods somewhere.
And I'll tell you more about that highway of tears. So either way, though, 4 suspects ended up being charged in connection with Frib's murder, which ended up not being connected at all to Maddy's disappearance, but just kind of very weird that this person they were looking into, this just happens. So it turned out that Frib had been lured to a house party where 3 men learned that he did have this large sum of money on him. When he arrived, they took him down to the basement, they tortured him for the money, and then he died as a result of his injuries.
Like, how desperate do you have to be to do that for $2,500?
$2,500 is not life-changing.
Right. It's going to be gone as soon as you get it. And it's like, obviously, they had some addictions they were trying to.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. There's, when you have a drug addiction, $20 seems like the world to you because you just want to get your hands on more drugs.
The next hit, yeah.
So now we're moving back to Maddy's case and we're moving forward to 12 years, incidentally, 12 years to the day that Maddy's mom made that call and reported her daughter missing. So this is May 29th, 2023. And the RCMP discovered Maddy's remains on a rural property about 11 miles or 18 kilometers from where she was camping at Hogsback Lake off of a place called South Slope Road. There is so much we do not know, even after the fact that her remains were found.
It's
you would
insane.
think, her remains are found, we got an arrest.
Right.
Not at all. So police secured the location with a search warrant on a private farm where Maddy's remains were found. So despite the fact that 2 years now, because this episode is being released in June, so we have just passed the 2-year mark when her remains were found, the RCMP have remained very, very tight-lipped regarding any information regarding the property owners, how were her remains found, as well as what was her cause and manner of death. So, and I will say this, but the fact that she was 11 miles or 18 kilometers away, it's not like she just walked over to this location.
No, she was clearly dumped there or whatever.
Right. So for more than 3 weeks, a white canopy tent remained erected at the site on a gravel road near the property where RCMP cruisers and unmarked trucks gathered. And I don't know, maybe Canada's different than the United States, but there's no information. And I find that so interesting.
It's like we crave that information. And I know Canadians do too, just humans want information. But to me, it's almost better to not be released. Like, what's the positive?
Right.
I guess, you can have somebody that might know something about it. So that's the thing. Like, here's what we know. If anybody's seen anything about this person with this description, please let us know. Or this time of, but it's 10 years later, right?
Right.
So it's
12 years.
12. So I don't know. I can see both sides. Hopefully it leads to some good information.
Right. So online rumors, of course, there's so many rumors. They say that Maddy's remains were found on a property that was owned by a man whose 2 sons may have been at the party that Friday night.
Sure.
And there's word that this man who owned the property has severe dementia. And again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that because it's just online rumors. I can't confirm this to be true. So with the finding of her remains, the community obviously mourned Maddy's confirmed death. Did anyone really, after 12 years, think that Maddy was going to come bopping home? No, but of course it's sad that now it's confirmed that she died. So with this, the municipal flag was lowered to half-mast at Vanderhoof City Hall, and more than 1,000 people attended the vigil to honor her. With word out that Maddy's remains had been located on this private property, obviously the community could only assume that someone would soon be charged for her murder, and then the mystery behind her death would be solved, that all this information would be released. However, despite the relief that Eldon and Dawn felt in finding their daughter, because of course so many people go missing, never to be found again and never get that sense of maybe closure, you might say. So they realized, though, that only more questions had been generated since their daughter's remains have been found. So the RCMP has, again, remained very tight-lipped and no shade there, but they have not revealed if foul play was involved. And you can only assume that it has to have been.
Yeah.
Though investigators indicate that solving this case remains their top priority. And they say that they are doing everything they need to do in the meantime so that they can bring justice to Maddy's family and to Maddy. There have been many theories about Maddy's disappearance and death, and many believe that she encountered foul play at the hands of one of the guests that had been at the party that night because they knew that she was going to be there out alone.
That's the lowest hanging fruit.
Of
That's
course it is.
The only theory that makes sense.
That somebody saw, I see only one tent here. She's camping by herself. Let's leave the party and then we'll come back.
I'm going to scumbag and I'm going to come assault her.
And that's in my mind what happened.
Yeah.
So many of the attendees left near midnight, but of course I'm saying that the people did remain until about the 3 o'clock hour. But apparently midnight was when this fight occurred. And then this is when a lot of the partygoers did leave. But hours later, there were still a handful of people there with Maddy right around 3 a.m. So her phone, her keys, and her clothing were missing. But again, there were no signs of struggle or forced entry into her truck. And this suggests that she was obviously transported by someone that maybe was familiar with the area. You could only assume it was a local.
Yeah, somebody came there with a car, took her out of her tent, and took her wherever.
Right. So lack of physical evidence at her campsite made it difficult to determine, did she willingly walk away with somebody? Did she willingly get into the car of somebody that she knew and trusted and never felt that would harm her? Or did somebody come up and take her who was a stranger? There's a lot of unanswered questions. So the fact that her remains were found on a private property near her last known location reinforces the idea about local involvement. As the case stands, it's unknown what the property owner's relationship to Maddy is, if there was a relationship at all, or if her death had any connection to the owners of the property, or if somebody just dumped her remains there.
And like you said, it's people can look up like property records in our country. So I don't know if that's not publicly available in Canada or whatever.
And that's my thought. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, how is there so little information out there?
Like somebody's looked into this, right?
Yeah, and that's where I keep hearing about somebody with dementia that owns that property. So the fact that the RCMP obtained a search warrant for the property suggests, maybe that the property owners had significance to the case. Because the location is 11 miles or 18 kilometers from the campsite at Hogsback Lake, again, it's highly unlikely because I will tell you in research, there was speculation, maybe Maddy got disoriented and walked over there. It would have taken her about 4 hours to walk over there. And this is rugged terrain.
I mean, she's an adventurer, but she's not going to walk I don't know her.
In the middle of the night?
Yeah, that seems pretty unlikely.
I don't think so. So the odds of her succumbing to injury or whatever in this area is highly unlikely. Throughout the time frame Maddy was missing, there was a lot of speculation if her disappearance was connected to this Highway of Tears, aka Highway 16. So this is a 450 mile or 725 kilometer stretch of road that runs from east to west through British Columbia. So again, because of the vast wilderness and isolation around Highway 16, serial offenders have taken advantage of this location, and it is made for the perfect hunting ground for a predator. The possibilities of hiding a victim's remains are endless. And of the missing, many are girls and women, many of which are indigenous. Many of the women were out hitchhiking at the time that they vanished. The youngest victim from Highway of Tears is 12-year-old Monica Jack, who vanished while she was out riding her bike on May 6, 1978, only 2 weeks before she had the chance to celebrate her 13th birthday. Her bike was found the next day, but her remains were not located until 1995, which was 17 years later, and they were found by a forestry worker. So Gary Handlin was charged with first-degree murder with no chance of parole for 15 years. Handlin was a suspect early on in the investigation after he had a rape conviction where he was paroled in 1975, which would have been 3 years earlier. And it wasn't until February of 2014 that the RCMP concocted a Mr. Big sting operation, which we discussed in a recent case, which led to his confession of Monica's murder. After he raped and murdered the young girl, he burned her clothing and he left her body behind a log. So far, the RCMP has identified 2 alleged serial killers that were active along the highway. And the first is Cody Lejbikoff, who became Canada's youngest serial killer. He started at age 19. Mm-hmm. So this is a young man from Fort St. James. This is a very rural area who seemed like the all-Canadian boy next door. He was into sports. He was always surrounded with friends. So at the time, he was working at a Ford dealership as a mechanic in Prince George, and he lived in a house with 3 female roommates. He came from a good family who loved and supported him. So despite the fact that he was well-liked and always surrounded by a group of friends, there were definitely red flags when it came to Cody. So during his youth, he was an avid hockey player, but he was known for his aggression and violence on the ice, to the point that parents would yank their kids off and be like, no, he's not skating with this guy who's
like
a lunatic.
He's a loose cannon, and I don't want my kid to like take a head injury.
And also, very disturbingly, he was a hunter who liked to finish his kill with his bare hands. And these are signs that, abuse to animals transfers to abuse to humans.
Right.
So after he relocated to Prince George, this is a much more urban city vibe, he found himself a girlfriend as well as a severe cocaine addiction. So at 20 years old, this is when it all came crashing down for Cody. So he was pulled over on a routine traffic stop in November of 2010 while he was driving his black pickup truck off of a remote logging road. So this officer just so happens to be out. It's probably close to midnight, and he sees this black truck come off of a remote logging road that seems suspicious. He's kind of driving erratically and fishtailing. So something in the cop's brain said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and check this guy out. So immediately the officer felt suspicious that he was hiding something. He noticed a smudge of what appeared to be blood on the driver's chin. So of course you're in an area where hunting and poaching happens. At first he's thinking maybe that's what it's about. But then he noticed a knife and a wrench in the truck, both of which were coated in blood. And I'm not a hunter, but I don't imagine most people hunt with wrenches.
Right. And if you do, you probably clean it up and put it in a spot. Like, it's not like you just get back from a fresh kill. You're like, peeling out and getting the hell away from wherever you are.
And as the officer looked closer, he noticed there was a lot of blood in the car. So Cody is claiming, of course, the officer's talking to him, that he had been out hunting deer, something that the officers did not believe as they looked closer. So as they followed the boy's tracks from where he had just come from, where he had just driven from off of this remote road, they were utterly horrified. They found a body of a young girl in the snow. And this is 15-year-old Lauren Leslie, and she had been beaten beyond recognition by a pipe wrench, and her throat had been slit. Despite the fact that Lauren had a genetic eye condition that left her nearly blind since birth, she was said to be a joyful child who was a great swimmer. She was an athlete. She excelled in karate. She met Cody on a Canadian internet site called Nextopia, and based on their chat history, it was clear that Cody immediately had an agenda when he began chatting with 15-year-old Lauren. And again, there's this 5-year difference. Lauren had a very innocent nature. She just wanted to chat. She didn't want to discuss the things he was wanting to discuss, which was very graphic in terms of sex. You could tell her conversation was always being like, I'm not into that. How are you doing? Oh, I'm studying right now. It was clear he was making her uncomfortable. So about a year after Lauren's murder, investigators managed to tie Cody to 3 other murders near the Highway of Tears, with victims that vanished between 2009 and 2010. And these women, the connection there, I believe, is the cocaine. So 35-year-old Jill Stachenko, 23-year-old Natasha Montgomery, her body has never been found, and 35-year-old Cynthia Moss. And this is based on DNA that just so happened to be found in Cody's apartment and on his clothing after he was arrested and charged with Lauren's murder. Who knows how many more women he could be responsible for?
Yeah, this guy's messy.
And those that knew Cody were utterly stunned, since he had always been a very popular kid. He had a lot of friends. However, by the time Maddy vanished, Cody had been in custody for months, so he's not tied to her case. I just wanted to give you some information about the Highway of Tears, because while I was doing Maddy's research, it just kept coming up.
Yeah, I mean, the Highway of Tears is a terrible thing because...
Scary.
Yeah, like if you're a serial killer, like that's a great spot to go dump bodies and stuff. It's like, it's almost an advertisement. Like, hey, come on, dump them here, because there's a million other bodies that we're finding. It's
right?
Really sad.
Very, very sad. So using advanced DNA technology in 2012, the Highway of Tears Task Force was able to match male DNA recovered from a victim's clothing that vanished in 1974. This is 16-year-old Colleen McMillan. When her brother last saw his sister, she asked him, "Don't tell our parents, I'm going to hitchhike." And then her remains were found a month later, 30 miles away. And that's just the thing with this highway. A lot of the times the victims were just hitchhikers, and these disgusting predators were just out driving and took advantage of the situation. So the DNA for Colleen was a match to Texas native Bobby Jack Fowler, who was working as a roofer in Prince George. Sadly, Colleen's family never got the satisfaction of seeing him pay for her murder since he died in prison in 2006. The task force believe that he is responsible for the murders of Gail Wise and Pamela Darlington, both who were 19 years old when they vanished in 1973. So this is just 2 examples of serial killers roaming along this highway. And they suspect that this man is also responsible for 6 other disappearances and murders along the Highway of Tears, as well as 7 murders in Oregon. I mean, this guy is horrific.
He got around.
So moving back to Maddy's case, while her parents were thankful that they did recover their daughter's remains, they still wait for closure, and they believe that they will someday receive answers as to how she died and who was responsible. They live with their grief of losing their daughter, 24/7. They live with a sickness inside of them, and they just remain hopeful that there will be justice someday. But yet, to this date, despite the fact that 2 years have passed since her remains have been found, no arrests have been made in relation to Maddy. So according to the RCMP, no further information can be released in order to maintain the integrity of the investigation, which does remain active and ongoing. And that's why there isn't any information. So a documentary that I watched, it's called The Vanishing of Madison Scott, has been created about her mysterious disappearance, as well as the deep impact that her death left on her community. 2025 marks 2 years since Maddy's remains have been found and 14 years since she vanished. She would have been 34 years old this year. Her loved ones remember her as a vibrant, free-spirited, loyal, and kind person. When she wasn't working hard at her parents' family business, she was immersed in spending time with her friends and family, being a fun 20-year-old girl. And it's the sad and tragic death of Maddy Scott. And I say death versus murder because there have been no murder charges brought forward.
Yeah, but clearly somebody took care of her, and it's really, really sad. So thank you for telling her story. It's a reminder to always make sure, even if you think it's a great idea to stay at your campsites or alone by yourself, just safety in numbers, especially as a woman. So.
And that's always what I tell my friends, because we take a girls trip every year, and it's like we leave together, we go home together.
100%.
And especially when alcohol is involved, because your guard is down. You're not making the same decisions and things you would make had you been sober at the time.
Right.
So again, you don't think, that something's going to happen at a campsite not far from your home, but stay with your friends.
Yep, absolutely. Well, so sorry to Maddy's family, and Maddy especially.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. If you love what we do, go ahead and support us on Patreon or Apple subscriptions. You can get a free 1-week trial. Go ahead and do it, because you deserve it. You work hard. I mean, why not, right? So go pop us in your ears while you're doing some laundry or whatever. And Ma and Pa, we're just a tiny, tiny little Ma and Pa shop. I'm Pa.
And I'm Ma.
Yeah, and we're just we don't have a huge network like some of those other ones, and we're growing we get a lot of comments on YouTube saying like, you guys are going to be, I'm surprised you don't have millions of followers, and I just say not yet. It's happening, and just slowly but surely. So you're in on the ground floor, and then just imagine in like 5 years, it'd be like, I knew those guys when they were still talking about being Ma and Pa. So thank you so much for your support,
Mike. We're always going to be Ma and Pa,
right? Exactly. Someday we'll be like corporate bigwigs, and we'll be like dressed in our suits and everything,
Never.
delivering the news. Never. I'm going to wear shorts every single time. You're going to see my disgusting knees all the time.
I am just not that person. I've never been a corporate person at all. I not in a million years, because working as a dietitian, my boss would be like, don't you want to go into management? And I'm like, hell no.
Oh gosh, like same for me. It's like I'm just a lowly sales guy. I like to just be responsible for my territory and not have to worry about 20 other people under me.
Yeah, but anyway, we thank you guys so much for being here with us. Thank you. And we will be back on Wednesday with a bonus episode. And like Mike said, if you're catching up and you need more content, it's there. We got you covered. But either way, we will be back. And until next time, bye.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.